Good night to my listeners and viewers in the USVI, the Caribbean, the United States, Europe, Africa and Asia, and worldwide. Welcome to the Collister Fahie show. Today is February 22nd, 2025. And on the hot seat tonight is episode 40. And the episode tonight is How to Play the Game. How to play the game. Now I have some good news for my listeners and my viewers. Starting on Tuesday, you can get me live on YouTube at Collister Fahie 647. That's YouTube live at Collister Fahie 647. On Facebook, in a few days you're going to be able to get an archive of all my shows. It's going to be on the Facebook page Collister Fahie. And of course you can get me live Tuesdays to Saturdays on Facebook at C. McKinley Fahie. You can also see some of my reels on Instagram at Collister Fahie, and on TikTok again you'll see some of my reels at c.mckinley.fahie. So the topic today, how to play the game. I will start off with some special comments from around the globe before I get to my analysis and discussion of some of those very topics. First of all, let me say happy Independence Day to St. Lucia, all my St. Lucian listeners. Let me just say that on February 22nd, 2025, today is Independence Day for St. Lucia. So, tout moun, enjoy, because Independence Day marks the date since 1979 when St. Lucia became an independent state of the Commonwealth of Nations, gaining full independence under Sir John Compton of the Conservative United Workers' Party, UWP. Compton went on to be Prime Minister and so for many years. We continue in my special comments. An American man boasts about buying St. Kitts Nevis passport to enter North Korea. The American filmmaker and tour guide Justin Martel says he got the passport but has never set foot in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the CPB. So how many more Americans and Europeans have purchased passports through the CBI program to do the same in countries that have US travel restrictions? Remember now, he's saying he bought his passport for over 100,000, that's 100,000 US dollars, to bypass US travel restrictions and entered North Korea. So let me ask you, how many persons you think from other countries have bought St. Kitts Nevis passports to bypass the US immigration laws and enter the US? In his video, Martel stated, "I have been able to acquire dual citizenship with St. Kitts and Nevis. Fun fact, I've actually never been to St. Kitts and Nevis." So my question again is, has this also been done in other Caribbean countries? St. Lucia, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, etc.? This filmmaker has stirred up a pot, because this is exactly what people are saying to keep an eye on for the CBI program throughout the Caribbean and what it entails for the US in terms of immigration as well as other countries. It's worth looking at, worth keeping an eye on. The CBI program has a lot of corruption around it. I continue. Go now to the US. Some of my special comments. Between the corruption we see in USAID and the Epstein evidence declassification that we are going to soon get, we are going to learn that 3/4 of, even maybe up to 4/5 of those folks in power in Washington, D.C. and the U.S. territories, they are either thieves, pedophiles, or both. And so that is coming down the pike in the next couple of days. I continue. FBI Director Kash Patel has just been confirmed by the Senate, by Congress. And he is of Indian background. So why aren't Democrats and Republicans and the media celebrating the first person of color to serve as FBI director? Remember, they celebrated the press secretary of Haitian descent for 4 years. They celebrated individuals from the LGBTQ in high positions under the Biden administration for 4 years. But I haven't heard yet one media outlet, Democrats or Republicans, celebrating the first person of color to serve as FBI director. All I see celebrating it is the Trump administration and MAGA. Worth thinking about. As I said, this show is going to talk about hard facts that people don't want to talk about. We're going to discuss things that people don't want to speak about. We go on. America and the world is waking up to images just yesterday of Hamas and Gaza civilians parading the babies, the bodies of babies in coffins, of Israelite babies. It was shocking. So shocking that Donald Trump, President of the United States, weighed in. He said, we are going to have some good news in the Middle East. What happened yesterday? The sight of those babies was not acceptable to anybody. Nobody's seen anything like that. So he's saying that they're going to have some good news coming out of the Middle East, because now people have had enough, just their fill, of that Gaza conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, with these parading of the bodies of babies in coffins. So again, I expect that to come down the pike, even either a peace deal or just an end to that conflict in its entirety. Now, FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi are fully prepared to declassify the Jeffrey Epstein documents. So much so that Attorney General Pam Bondi says much of the evidence is on her desk, or rather the declassification of the evidence is on her desk, ready for the declassification order, but was simply awaiting the confirmation of Kash Patel as the FBI director. So as I said a few days ago, here we go. More news from across the globe. The president of Congo, African nation, just offered the United States ownership of the country's minerals to entice the president of the United States to intervene to put an end to the war that is backed by Rwanda. Now, Congo holds more than half the world's cobalt and coltan. They also have substantial deposits of gold, copper, tin, lithium, etc. While China currently has a considerable influence in the Congo's mineral sector, and before them the Europeans, the president of Congo now is turning to the United States as being one of the most mineral-rich countries in the world. But it is unclear whether or not President Trump would take a deal like this. But remember, the push is on to get as much minerals. China is big in Africa. So owning some of these minerals in exchange for security in Africa or security in the Congo might be something that the President of the United States might be willing to look at, since he will be getting something much more valuable than what we even get while we are defending NATO by the billions, protecting NATO, the European countries. And what do we get in return? Nothing, just alliances. I continue. Germany's AfD leader, Alice Weidel, we're going to Europe now, announces that President Trump and his policies are worth looking at. So she's interested and saying that she is going to put in place some Trump-like policies if she is elected as the leader of Germany tomorrow in their election. She insists, just like Trump, that she will close the border within 100 days. She will eliminate subsidies for asylum seekers. Basically, she won't be paying illegal immigrants out of the coffers of Germany anymore. And she insists that she will make Germany great again. The effect of President Trump across the globe is widespread and it is being felt. There is a populist uprising globally, just as in the United States, and it is my hope that this sort of populist uprising will continue in countries that are faced with corrupt leaders and people in position to keep the corruption going, especially in the boards of elections, their voter rolls, their election machines, and refusal to have paper ballots in ballot boxes to be counted by hand. As President Donald Trump stated yesterday, he wants all the governors, especially the Republican governors, to immediately return to paper ballots because it is cheaper than electronic voting machines. It is 1/8 because he wants to do paper ballots in ballot boxes, counted by hand. He wants same-day voting, and he wants valid voter ID and proof of citizenship to get registered to vote legally in the United States, across all states and the territories. Like I tell you, new day has come for America and perhaps its territories and the world. I come now to the Virgin Islands. These are just special comments. A lot of the news that's flying around. A family man killed in 2021 forklift incident at Frenchman's Reef job site was awarded nearly $6.9 million in the Superior Court yesterday, or recently. A Superior Court jury ruled in favor of the family of John Nigg, who died by a forklift incident. Superior Court Judge Carol Thomas Jacobs ordered the total figure reduced by 10% because 10% was found to be the deceased fault, and so it left 6.891.672.60 to be paid by the defendants, the PDSI, Bluewater Construction, and Jeremy Hinkle in the amounts proportionate to the liability assigned to them by the jury, which was 25% for PDSI, 45% for Bluewater Construction, and 20% for Jeremy Hinkle, respectively. Morgan & Morgan and Goa Legal represented the plaintiffs. So I am saying now to the people of the Virgin Islands who have cases stuck on the docket, whether it be for wrongful death or whatever, perhaps you need to hire Morgan & Morgan. You need to hire Grant Gilwater and the Goa legal team, because they seem to get the cases settled or brought before a trial jury in a short space of 5 years. When you have people who are in trial, have cases, civil cases, for over 10 years, 15 years, and even up to 18 years. Maybe we need to hire Morgan & Morgan, keep hiring Leron, and get Grant Gilwater and Goa to represent us in the Superior Court. Because we can't seem to get to trials for our civil cases. But a case that was filed in 2021 is over and done with judgment in place by February of 2025. Just 4 years later. I'll give you an example. 18-year-old case. Trial date is set for 18-year-old St. Croix Alumina lawsuit. Since October 2007, former employees of a St. Croix bauxite mining company who claimed they'd been exposed to dangerous dust and may develop cancer or respiratory ailments. Earlier this month, in February, a Superior Court judge set an October 27, 2025 trial date for their lawsuit, 18 years after it was filed. Now, more than 37 employees of that company, once known as Martin Marietta Alumina, or its offshoots, have filed lawsuits over the years. At least 19 of these men and women are now dead. But they have a child or a spouse carrying on the lawsuits in their name. They argue many things. They were diagnosed with pneumococcynosis, a lung disease. The case just went around and around because Lockheed Martin, which merged with Martin Marietta, argued for 17 years. And yet in July 2024, they said that 17 years was not enough. Wow. 6,673-page document detailing the legacy of a Milton A. Burt's case, as well as the reams of ancillary Lockheed Martin business. This is just too much. And they were arguing it takes years to develop lung cancer and damage and whatever. So my thing is, the moral of this part of this podcast is this, my people all over the globe. If you have lawsuits pending, make sure that you instruct a child or your spouse to carry on them lawsuits in your name. If you feel that the Superior Court is covering up, protecting, are holding up cases on the docket simply because of who the plaintiff is, or rather who the defendants are, maybe you need to put your lawsuits in trust and instruct a child or all your children or your spouse to carry on these lawsuits in your name if you happen to die. Because that is what I am doing. So my cases will live for perpetuity unless the Superior Court, my 4 cases, unless the Superior Court and the judges do their job. Now we continue with the Virgin Islands. Apparently the governor of the Virgin Islands, Albert Bryan, went to visit Trump in Washington with all those other governors, but he seemed to have gone to Washington to bend the knee, but he ended up kissing Donald Trump's ring. I'll say ring. How could the governor of the Virgin Islands say he was not going to cooperate with the federal laws and executive orders in writing? He put it in writing. He will not comply with the federal immigration laws to have illegal immigrants rounded up and deported. So I'll say this. The governor backtracked quickly and he said that the UVSVA will cooperate. Now he's saying that he's asking for visa waivers for immigrants to come to the Virgin Islands to help with the workforce because you have too much work and not enough workers in the Virgin Islands. Let me just say this. So Governor Bryan believes that Trump is so foolish, he's a dunce, that he will not see that this is just another Democrat governor trying to give him the workaround for illegal immigration. He really believes that President Trump, as quick on the draw as he is, he won't see that this is just a trial of a workaround of the immigration laws. By the way, if the governor needs more people to join the workforce, maybe he needs to insist that the contractors and everybody pay a decent hourly wage instead of hiring illegals or people who take a much lower wage than the legal people who are here in the Virgin Islands. These young men and young women who don't have a job, you see them on every street corner. Maybe if you offer them, or they offer them the correct wage, rate of pay, then they will work. But I believe that all of this is part of a sinister plot. A sinister plot to simply delay and defer construction and projects just for a year and a half later. Just for 1 year and a half more until Governor Bryan is out of office. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, when he goes out of office, many of these same people who have been reigning on us for 8 years may just follow him, depends on who the newly elected governor is. And that is why you hear me say to the people of the Virgin Islands, find your Donald Trump. Maybe you need some of that in the Virgin Islands so that you could really see what they've been doing for decades, but primarily with Epstein and the last 8 years here in the Virgin Islands. I can tell you this, they have done a good job, a delay and defer, for 7 years now. For 7 years. Delay and defer. I don't see much more changing now that Donald Trump is president of the United States. There's going to be a massive slowdown. It's in the cards. It just makes common sense based on how the administration in the United States is moving. We're going to have some more delays and defers. So I continue with the U.S. Virgin Islands. Just some food for thought. We had a Thursday night massacre at the Taxi Cab Commission in the Virgin Islands. As Executive Director Vernice Gums was terminated for insubordination and quickly replaced by Melissa Smith, who was assisting from time to time at the Taxi Cab Commission because, quote unquote, she also worked at the VIPD. We will discuss that in much more detail later. But that Thursday night massacre that is in the newspaper, these media outlets that I don't trust, they're at it again. They're giving you one side of the story and giving the optics about Executive Director Vernice Gums from the mouths of people on the board that terminated her for insubordination. Keep that in mind as we continue. First thing on my agenda tonight for the topic, and the topic is how to play the game. Yes, Harriet, we might get to call Attorney General Pam Bondi. It might come to that. Good night to you, Cheryl. Good night to Chantel. Good night to all my listeners. You know, as I see it scroll up, I'll call a few names. I'll come back down. I see here we have Clover in the house, Karen in the house, Shantae in the house, and we'll keep going. Thank you for joining in. And to my listeners from the other Caribbean islands, I see some people in here too. My first one is this. Trump tweets to Elon Musk to get more aggressive in exposing corruption in the government. And on Twitter, Musk responds, "Will do, Mr. President." Love that. "Will do, Mr. President," to Elon Musk getting much more aggressive in exposing corruption. Like I say, here we go. The man agrees, and we're going to ramp it up. Now, New York City, at the same time, is suing the Trump administration. Notice, New York City is suing the government of the United States over the $80 million migrant fund that the Department of Government Efficiency found and clawed back. They took it back. So here comes New York City, the state of New York, suing the government of the United States for the money that they took away from illegal immigrants. Yeah, good night, Chantel. Good to see you. I don't understand. I really don't understand how the state of New York will be suing the government of the United States for finding $80 million that they were given to illegal immigrants for housing, food, and all that. Especially after the Biden administration stole FEMA money that was meant for hurricane victims, Americans, and they spent it on luxury 4-star hotels for illegals in New York, giving them $3,600 in food stamps. My people, my listeners, my viewers, it does not make sense what is happening in the United States to the Democrat Party, to the Democrat governors, and to those states that are quote-unquote blue. It does not make sense. I continue. President Donald Trump pardoned Alice Marie Johnson, a black American woman who was sentenced as a non-violent drug offender under the 1994 crime bill. A bill pushed through with the help of Biden before he was president. Now look what Trump has done. He has taken this woman and appointed her. He has made her the pardon czar of the United States to help him vet people who are on the wrong end of the 1994 crime bill and other small crimes where they get 3 strikes and out, to try to pardon them out. Remember, Alice Marie Johnson is a black American woman who Trump pardoned. No Democrat president pardoned her. Barack Obama didn't see fit to pardon her. And now she has risen to be appointed by the President Trump to be the pardon czar of the United States. What a turn of events. A lot of people forget Trump was a Democrat, A lot of people forget Trump was a Democrat. So how amazing is it that Trump is now a Republican who is holding Republicans in name only, rhinos, to task, and he is doing through MAGA and his administration what the Democrats refuse to do for the American voters, regardless of race, color, creed, but especially to the black America, the brown America. The Trump administration is going after cartels, not only in Mexico, but they have declared war on the cartels in every country where they are located, because they feel that the cartels are responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans through the fentanyl and the drugs that they pour across the border, especially in the last 4 years under Biden. His view is, if you go on a worldwide campaign and cut off the funding, then they have no power. You strike right at the heart of the cartels. We also hear that the media is up in all kind of arms because Trump fired the Joint Chiefs from the Pentagon. He fired the acting director of ICE, and he has decided that he is going to fire any bureaucrat who serves at the pleasure of the president and refuses to carry out the mandates of the administration. The media and the Democrats fighting that too, when Trump has the executive power to do the same. Yet in the Virgin Islands, the governor wields the power to fire any exempt employee because they serve at his pleasure. What you don't want for yourself, you shouldn't give to others. But if you're going to exercise executive privilege and power in the Virgin Islands, and Trump has the same executive privilege and power in the United States, the Democrats are not reading the room. And these elected officials, corrupted elected officials, can continue to try and fight. It won't change a thing. As I said before, Trump has decided he is going to audit the Red Cross and any and all non-for-profits that have been caught taking money from the slush fund of USAID or from any agency that can be accounted for or that finds its way back into the US as bribes, pay for play, or political contributions to the very same people who ensure that that money goes in the millions and over the last decades the billions to Red Cross and like the Salvation Army. That is going to open a whole nother angle or tier of corruption. Because mark my words, the corruption in these not-for-profits that do humanitarian aid, they say, is vast. Like I said, Trump said he wanted paper ballots, same-day voting, photo ID, proof of citizenship to register to vote. And I said that that is common sense. And we need to make it happen in the United States and in the Virgin Islands. I believe that every country's electoral offices, the boards of election, the voter rolls, need to be purged. We need to have a populist uprising for integrity. We have had decades of corruption. So let us do the right thing now. And if America can lead the way by first implementing it at home and let it broaden out to the world, so be it. Now, the question is, how does the media ask questions about USAID being shut down for corruption, kickbacks, bribes, waste, fraud, abuse, just to push a narrative? I don't understand what the media in the United States is doing. They're pushing a narrative, so they want to stop the exposing of fraud, to push a narrative that somehow it is a bad thing to expose corruption. I'll give you an example. The new one in the media is that somehow we got to keep pumping billions of dollars, fraudulent dollars, abuse, waste, through USAID, and it shouldn't be shut down. But let me tell you, it's going to be shut down. President Trump insists it will be shuttered. But the argument is that if you shut down USAID, it stops humanitarian aid throughout the world. So it's going to cause a humanitarian crisis. So the media is now using these stories to push the narrative that the world, that everyone is saying they don't receive the funding for humanitarian reasons. If you don't send the money that they don't receive for humanitarian reasons, it's going to cause a humanitarian crisis. The media also is not reading the room, much like the Democrats and some Republicans. This isn't about party. This is about corruption. Corrupt politicians in Washington, D.C. wanting their grift and their theft of American taxpayer funds to continue. Now, everybody has come with these two names, and I want to mention them because they've been out there for decades. NESARA, NESARA. That's one. And the next one is GESARA, GESARA, which is the global policy of NESARA. NESARA is more internal, national, territorial in the US, and GESARA is worldwide. Let me tell you what they are, and you'll see where I'm coming from. The concept of NESARA, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, and its global counterpart, GESARA, which is the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act, proposes sweeping changes to the US and global financial system, focusing first on erasing debt and restoring economic security. In the United States, some of the proponents of NESARA advocate for the complete wipeout of debts, including credit card debts, mortgages, the mortgage debts, and loan debts. So imagine mortgage and credit card debts wiped clean, and tax policies overhauled to benefit the average man, but on a wider scale, the entire United States and its territories. I keep putting in its territories so that we in the Virgin Islands understand how it impacts us. Now, the GESARA is just the global enforcement of the same, or application of the same things. Right? Now, this move towards erasing monumental piles of debt to liberate individuals from financial suffocation, overhauling the banking and monetary systems to root out inefficiencies and corruption, and instituting sweeping changes to the tax structures to foster fairness and stimulate economic growth, is now considered something that is plausible. The advent of Donald Trump and his policies have opened the eyes of many in the US who now say bureaucracy will no longer keep back these common sense things, and now Nesara may just be something that can be done and it can work. Trump and his administration is finding billions of dollars. That is the taxpayers' money that have been wasted, abused, stolen corruptedly by the political class, and he's bringing it back home. And he is insistent that it be returned, a portion of it, to the citizens of the United States, and by extension, its territories. And I know what I'm saying when I say by extension, its territories. I'll get to that too. How could this be possible? Well, right now Trump is talking about fair taxes for the middle class, lower taxes. He's even thinking about eliminating the income tax and replacing it with an external tax. That is an immediate windfall for every working citizen in the United States and the Virgin Islands. You get more take-home pay. You get more take-home pay. Who was getting $350, $400, $500 taken out as FICA will get that money to take home. Immediate plus. Okay, we continue. Under this concept, the banks will be forced to use systems like blockchains to ensure that the corruption and fraud that you see in the financial institutions are reduced to almost, if not zero. It will be much more easy to keep our financial institutions, our money secure. And all of that, again, is being considered plausible because Trump is insistent on shoring up the banks and making sure that the debt comes down, that there is no more inflation, because he also insists it's a false inflation. You cannot have inflation when you're spending money, sending trillions to foreign countries to support their welfare systems, victims in Afghanistan, their families get money for what the US did in Afghanistan. But veterans in the US struggle with addiction, homelessness, just to get a job sometimes. It's just madness what is going on in Washington. So I brought that up to say Trump is on the right path. Elon Musk is on the right path. As a layman who doesn't really understand the financial institutions like a banker would or an accountant would, I just know common sense dictates that if you get trillions of waste, money that was being shuttled around for fraud, back into the US coffers because it's taxpayers' money, you give some of that to the taxpayers for relief, you cut taxes, remove the income tax, you drill baby drill, lower the cost of living, lower the cost of gas, more work for legal citizens, higher paying jobs for legal citizens, having a legal justice system that is fair, where no one really is above the law, and you hold everyone to account for whatever they do. I see great things in store for the United States, its territories, and by extension, the Caribbean and the world. It's not complex when you look at it as take back what was being wasted, give it back to the ones who put the money in there in the first place, hold those who wasted it to account, who committed crimes need to be prosecuted, and move forward in ensuring that the external, the IRS, is gone. Or hopefully it will be gone. So instead of us paying taxes for corrupt politicians to divvy up among themselves and get it back through political contributions, we now keep our eyes on it in every aspect of the government. Through the Department of Government Efficiency, and it will work. Foreign companies will pay the taxes. The workers of the United States will get relief and spend more money into the community, open up more businesses, get engaged in farming, agriculture. They will build more homes. The housing bubble will not be a bubble anymore. Houses will be affordable and people will be able to raise their families on a one income. Like how it used to be just about 30, 40 years ago. So now I continue. We're going to have some discussion tonight. But there are some things that are going on around the world that is very, very pertinent to all of us. And so we're going to discuss it. How many of you, my listeners, my viewers, know that there were 70 Christian men, women, and children beheaded because they were Christian? Their bodies were left in a church because they were Christians. The perpetrators of that act who murdered them have ties to ISIS. Now, ISIS was decimated by President Donald Trump. Only for us to hear 4 years later, after Joe Biden was president, that maybe our taxpayer funds were also being used to prop up and bring back ISIS. What happened under President Biden is evil. That's all I'll say on that. Evil. Where is the media outrage? Where is the morning to night coverage from the CNNs, the MSNBCs? It's not in the VI Consortium, it's not in the Daily News. As far as I know, if I'm wrong, let me know. Is it in the newspapers all around the Caribbean and Europe? I haven't seen much. I see it on social media, blowing up on Twitter. Truth. MAGA speaking about it. The conservatives speaking about it. Lo and behold, the Catholics aren't really speaking about it that much. Why are they silent? Because they were Christians? Because if it were Muslims, because right now throughout Europe, especially in Germany, you tweet the wrong thing or say the wrong thing about illegal immigrants in Europe, you could go jail. Can you imagine that? A tweet. If you forward or retweet or repost a tweet that they feel is offensive, they can lock you up in Germany, in other parts of Europe. Madness. Absolute madness. So I'll continue. I'll say this. This massacre occurred in Kasanga, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. You remember I told you before, the president of Congo is reaching out to the United States to take over ownership of its wealth, its mines, just for security. I believe the president of Congo, the Republic of Congo, fears a coup, fears what is coming over the horizon. Because when you see massacres like this happen, it sends a message. It's a tale of something to come. It's like the genocide he had in Rwanda. And notice, in Congo, it is a civil war and a war being propped up by Rwanda, which is getting millions through USAID. And we know that USAID was used for color revolutions, destabilization of governments. It comes together again. This happened in a Protestant church. 40 people beheaded, men, women, and children. I can't even fathom it. I can't fathom it. So now we're going to get to the nitty-gritty, the two main topics that I wanted to talk about. And of course, the in the Virgin Islands, because I really wanted to just touch on the CBI and the issue with that American who is boasting on video all over the globe and social media that he bought a passport from St. Kitts and Nevis for over 100,000. Never been to St. Kitts and Nevis. And he used that passport to go into North Korea because he couldn't go in as an American citizen. We got to be careful down the Caribbean. The CBI program, we got to be careful. I believe that people are going to be held to account for that. When it's all said and done, people are going to be held to account for that. Too much corruption, too much bribery, and it destabilizes the Caribbean. We don't know who coming in. We don't know who coming into the Caribbean. We don't know who going into the US. And likewise, we don't know who coming out of the US and going into other countries. We got to be careful. So now to the US Virgin Islands. And Governor Bryan, President Trump, and what is really going on with all that story. So Governor Bryan went to Washington and he met with President Trump and the fellow governors to address, I guess, different priorities at the Virgin Islands and the different states, Guam, Puerto Rico. So one of the areas that the governor says, because this is what the governor says, and then I'll tell you what I say. The governor says that his administration wants all illegal immigrants removed from the territory. That's not what he put in paper. That's not what he put on paper. But this is what the governor is now saying. The governor has no clues. Go back to that. The governor has no clues. So he is now saying, and the consortium and the Daily News is reporting, that he's saying his administration wants all illegal immigrants removed from the territory. Well, why he didn't put it back in writing? He put the one about not participating, defying the Trump executive order and federal law. He put it in writing. But this is just a quote in the paper. We'll put it in writing. Because if you want all illegal immigrants removed from the territory, put it in writing. He also wants to restart the refinery, and he wants a reduction in regulations. But this is the same governor who supported Joe Biden's massive regulations that he put in place by executive order after Trump lost in 2020. Bryan is the same governor that don't have no space when it came to the Biden administration in promoting green, new energy and New Deal, and he left the refinery as he was. He was more into solar and cutting back on fossil fuels. Well, how is it now the governor is saying that he no longer believes in the Green New Deal scam? He is promoting restarting the refinery. That ain't fossil fuels. So, in his wisdom now, he wants to side up with the Trump campaign and their promise to slash regulations. For every regulation that is put in, 4 or 5 have to be cut away. This is the governor flipping completely over in a total different direction, absolutely opposite, to cozy up with the Trump administration, because he says that, I want to read it, Governor Bryan raised concern of the economic significance of restarting the oil refinery in the Virgin Islands. What he was doing for the last 8 years. What was he doing under the Biden administration? That was the president that you were aligned with. You could have made a phone call. He was a friend to the Virgin Islands. That's why you said you met him on the tarmac with your wife, and you met him on the tarmac 4 years later again. That's all I'm going to say. That's your friend. So wouldn't it make sense that the governor would have gotten the refinery open more easily under Biden? Or, yes, you're right. You're right, Mary. It is two-faced. It is what politicians do. And that is why I say I can't be a politician. This is what politicians do. They're two-faced. They tell you one thing before election, then you vote for them and they get in, and then they walk on you and do the exact opposite. Two-faced. Look at what's going on in the legislature at the Virgin Islands. Look at what's going on in the Congress. If it wasn't for Donald Trump and MAGA and the Republican Party ascending now, a lot of things would not be going like how it's going on in the Congress in the United States. But a lot of them politicians are afraid of MAGA and the Republican base that has been expanded, and they threaten them with primarying them, putting them out of office. And so they come to toe the Trump line. And so Trump is unstoppable. But back to Bryan. Governor Bryan emphasized that this initiative holds immense potential for job creation and economic growth in the territory. What he was doing for 4 years when he come to the refinery. He didn't know that 4 years ago under Biden? No, he was propping up the Green New Deal scam. And that is why I tell you, I want the Trump administration, Department of Government Efficiency, to look at the federal funds and how they were divvied up from USAID and if it had any impact in the Virgin Islands. Because I know how these groups operate. So you go along with the Green New Deal scam for 4 years. You ain't take on the refinery. Didn't take it on. But here comes Trump, who wants to drill, baby, drill. And so you switch gears. Wipe your face off. And all of a sudden now, you into refinery, restarting fossil fuels. Because if you realize recently you haven't heard the governor talking about green energy and sustainable energy, all you're hearing is that WAPA need $435 million, otherwise he's going to go out of business. And you're hearing that they want to privatize WAPA. You see why I told you guys what was happening for the 8 years? Pump money into WAPA. Millions into WAPA. Pay off your contractors and your friends and your whatever. You're just making sure everybody get paid. It doesn't matter where he take the money from. You borrow and you spend. It is credit line after credit line. Credit line for disaster recovery, credit line for running the government, credit line and credit line for WAPA. And then we're going to hear that WAPA still failing and we want to privatize it. They get money on all end. They get monies on all end. It is just another USAID trick in the Virgin Islands by the name of WAPA. Everybody eats the taxpayers' money, shuttles back around to the very people that shuttle the money in to pay the same failing entity. And so I continue. However, the governor also pointed out the challenges posed by federal regulations. Well, who put the federal regulations into place? Your friend Joe Biden? The governor has no clues. And that is why my podcast is here to have these discussions. This is what they do not want the people to know. They don't want you to analyze and to see what they're doing. But I'm going to let you know what they're doing. I'm going to analyze it for you and break it down in the simplest terms possible. He says here, however, he also pointed out the challenges posed by federal regulations which often slow down progress on large-scale projects. Blame game. So your friend Joe Biden just come out of office after 4 years of incompetence, and now you're complaining about the federal regulations moving too slow for large-scale projects, but it's he who put the federal regulations into place. So now you want to go now and mama guy with Trump because you want Trump to cut the very regulations that Biden put into place because Trump had cut them before, and use that as your excuse to say that is why you did not have no movement on the refinery and restarting the refinery. Listen, politicians ain't easy. Politicians ain't easy. They move from state of emergency to state of emergency. Governor Bryan will go down as the first governor to govern for 3/4 of his 2-year term under state of emergency. And right now, they're looking another state of emergency so they could do what they want in the executive branch with the people of the Virgin Islands money. You hear Senator Ray Fonseca want to declare a state of emergency for health. You hear they want to declare a state of emergency for disaster recovery. You hear they want to have a state of emergency for the roads. The infrastructure is going to hell. So we're going to get states of emergency coming. It's a given. They only know how to govern under state of emergency when they could bypass the legislature, when they have to follow the rules. And the 3 branches of government, they cannot function. Even if they have a Democrat dominant legislature, the governor wants to cut through all that and just bypass them because they're going to vote for it anyway. That is how he sees things, in my view. I might be wrong. But after 7 years of watching the governor operate, I have to draw that conclusion. So now, I want to know, the governor didn't move to get the refinery reopened underneath a Democrat president. But now he wants to pretend to get the refinery going under a Republican president, especially Donald Trump. So look how Mr. Sweetmouth, because the governor, he good, you know. But I don't think he understands what he's dealing with Trump. Trump is the master troller. Trump never forgets. Trump have seen every word that every governor in the United States and its territories have said about him, about his administration, about his mental capacity. How they equate him with Hitler, call him Marxist, fascist, sexist, misogynist. I could go on, but Trump knows. So let the governor go ahead with his sweet mouth and sweet talk. Hear this. Governor Bryan also stressed the importance of federal and local cooperation in addressing public safety concerns. This is what he said. This is what they say they talk to Trump about. Because Trump have a way of coming out and saying people lying, you know. Because Trump and his people had a meeting with Zelensky, and Zelensky come out and say all kind of things. Trump just get upset and Trump say, listen, you got done the war in Ukraine, you're getting not another red cent out of the United States, and it done. I expect I to stop the war soon, and it's going to be done. Because you see, once the President of the United States, Donald Trump, understands the common sense of something and people playing games, he don't have time for that. He don't have no time for that. It's FAFO. Straight up, straight up. He told them people, I expect to get a prisoner that you have the American prisoner back in the US soil by X, Y, and Z. The prisoner come home, Trump meet him, shake his hand, and lay him sleep in the Lincoln bedroom. He tell them, I expect to get the prisoners released from Hamas. On the road, Hamas released some of the prisoners. And it's going to be like that because Trump don't play games. He tell the cartels, I will wipe you off the face of the earth if you ever harm one law enforcement officer. Well, guess what happened? They killed one of the law enforcement officers, you know. And Trump have decided he not only going after the cartels in Mexico, he going after them across every country of the world, wherever they may be. See, that is a man who is decisive, a president who don't play games. So when the governor says, he highlighted the need to remove individuals who are in the territory illegally and called for a stronger federal effort to combat the influx of drugs, particularly fentanyl, which poses a serious threat to the community. And when he go on to say that ensuring that those who engage in criminal activities face appropriate consequences as part of his discussion with Trump, I tell you, you know, you see this little minor cabal of corrupted people who feel that they're above the law, their words gonna come back to haunt them. Ensuring that all those who engage in criminal activities face appropriate consequences. The governor of the Virgin Islands, Albert Bryan, says that these are some of the discussions and statements he made to the president, Donald Trump, while at the governor's meeting. He just gave Trump the authority from the horse's mouth to investigate, prosecute, and jail anybody in the Virgin Islands that are using or engaged with using federal funds if they commit any crime. And I say any crime. Because here in the Virgin Islands, we feel that we could commit crimes and the local courts and the local Attorney General, Department of Justice, VIPD, will slow it down, cover it up, lengthen it out, or simply make it go away. If you think that Attorney General Pambandi don't already know how much money FEMA, EPA, and whoever sent into the Virgin Islands as a windfall in the last month when Biden was on his way out, the U.S. Virgin Islands went from 8 billion to 23 billion in a month. See, I don't only talk facts, you know. Like I say, more power to the Virgin Islands if that influx of billions is on the up and up. But if it was simply receiving gold bars thrown off the Titanic by your fellow aligned corrupt individuals, you're going to be held to pay. Just remember, I say you're going to be held to pay. Because it's coming. And by this statement by the governor, I would have referred to this. If I was to arrest the lieutenant governor, the governor, any high person as a commissioner engaged in corruption, fraud, RICO, money laundering, abuse of power, bribery, kickbacks, financial crimes, RICO and SICO, I would have quote this as my opening statement. Your Honor, the government of the United States is here today to prove that the defendant did engage in racketeering, money laundering, bribery, and extortion. And we investigated and charged the defendant or defendants with the full authorization and cooperation of the government of the Virgin Islands. As I quote what the governor of the Virgin Islands, Mr. Albert Bryan, stated on February 21st, 2025. Ensuring that all those who engage in criminal activities face the appropriate consequences. And let the record show, and the record will show, that that is exactly what the government of the United States did. And in doing so, the defendants will be shown to be guilty of the crimes they are charged with. That's how I start. That's how I start in court. That have been my opening statement. And this is why I say be careful words. And I know a lot of my listeners and my viewers, you realize I choose my words very carefully. Sometimes I take some back. Words matter. Position and title that the words flow from matter. Remember, we are the same people who say, oh, Trump, he just like a child talking about Gulf of America, renaming it from Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. You don't see how he responded to Hillary Clinton? Oh, you'll be in jail. He petty bad. But that is in the politics of it. Notice when it came to his indictments, Trump was stuck on a script because his attorneys told him, this is what you say and this is what you do not say. And for almost 4 years of non-stop lawfare, they could not catch Trump going off script once. They try a couple things, say a bunch of nonsense. They try to put back a case because Trump says something that is written and is a fact. The jury did not find that I had raped E. Jean Carroll. The media spent months upon months saying that they should deal with Trump. But when you look at the court document that the jury wrote, the box that said guilty of rape was not checked. Everything else was checked. And so Trump had the right to say, I was not found guilty of raping E. Jean Carroll. And I digress to that so that we in the Virgin Islands and the world can understand that while we hold Trump to certain standards, we don't hold everybody to the same standards. But know that Trump isn't as foolish as people think. He has a memory like an elephant, and he remembers who slights him. He has said it. Trump was the one who ordained. Trump ordained his destiny. He once said, I would like to reach to the point of being solo, that I get to see who my real friends are and who my enemies are. Because when that happens, then I will know how to move. And the retribution. And I'm just paraphrasing. This is not a quote. It's a paraphrasing. His retribution will be grave. And so said, so done. You know the amount of people that mess on Trump? The amount of people who Trump did good for. You remind me of myself, who mess on Trump. Didn't care about his wife, didn't care about his children, didn't care about his family, didn't care about the supporters who they hurt trying to get to Trump, didn't care about the people who they hurt trying to get to Trump, friends of Trump. And so I say all that to say that the governor, you may have made a boo-boo. And yeah, I know, you were just making talking points. But as the governor of the Virgin Islands, you just authorized the President of the United States through his Attorney General to ensure that all those who engage in criminal activities in the Virgin Islands face the appropriate consequences. So I continue. This is the major one. This is the last one on the block. And it goes like this. Listen, the Virgin Islands, it's a place that you see many things. But the way that the media covers things is to move the people of the Virgin Islands into a mode of thinking. If they don't like you, they push the narrative one way, so they think that that person is the worst. They will put this person's picture all across the newspaper. Faces looking like they're the worst. And their friends and allies, they give another narrative with pictures smiling and upbeat as if there's nothing wrong, when you could read what they do in the very same newspaper. So this is the last one, but it's the most important one. The Taxi Cab Commission terminates Executive Director Gums, who plans to challenge insubordination claim. I read it again, because my friends are going to tell you how to play the game right now. How to play the game. The Taxi Cab Commission terminates Executive Director Gums, who plans to challenge insubordination claim. The Virgin Islands Taxi Cab Commission's governing board has terminated Vernice Gums, who served her last day as Executive Director on Thursday. That's this Thursday was just gone, according to the board chair. The board chair says, the board is now transitioning in a different direction and the former executive director is transitioning out. That is what Elizabeth Hanson Watley, the Virgin Islands Taxi Cab Commission board chair, said. Someone correct me on the live right now. Is Miss Elizabeth Hanson the daughter of former Senator Chucky Hanson? May she rest in peace. I am waiting, so before I say what I say, I'm going to wait to see if it pops up. I'm going to give you a little bit of a second. Is Miss Elizabeth Hanson the daughter of former Senator Chucky Hanson? May Chucky Hanson rest in peace. While I wait on that, I'll continue. Gums said she received a letter. This is former CEO, our executive director, Gums, speaking. She said she received a letter via email Thursday night informing her of her termination due to her continued insubordination to the VITCC board. I'm going to read it again. Gums said she received a letter via email Thursday night informing her of her termination due to her continued insubordination to the VITCC board. So the board sent the termination to the former executive director via email in this Virgin Islands. She continued, I have not had a meeting. I have not had due process. I had not had anything. So I can't tell you anything differently outside of that, what is stated there. That is what Ms. Gomes stated. Gomes, who noted the claims of insubordination are inaccurate, said she felt her termination was unjust. She said she plans to challenge the board's decision. She said she will begin by looking into any administrative options available to her, whether it would be an appeal at the VITCC level or through the Public Employees Relations Board. The first step, she said, would be to verify whether or not there's any administrative actions that need to be taken or that can be taken. And if there's none, then the next step will be legal action, she said. No matter what the situation, everyone is entitled to due process. I'm no different. Watley, Elizabeth Hanson Watley, said that the board's move comes at a time when the Taxi Cab Commission has been struggling. She said the commission is now heading in a direction where the board members collectively feel the agency would be in a better position to serve the people at the Virgin Islands. Elizabeth Hanson Watley went on to say, the Taxi Cab Commission has been the point of many persons' scrutiny, lack of services, and so forth. We collectively, she's talking about she now and the board members, we collectively have decided that there needs to be a change where we can improve services and address concerns that have been plaguing the agency. The hypocrisy, my son. Gomes, no, the fired executive director, Gomes, elevated to the commission's top position in September of 22. She served as an assistant executive director from April 2022 before leading the agency as acting director following the resignation in July 2022 of the then executive director, Linda Smith. I want you to remember that for later. Gomes was assistant director until April 22. Before she got the big spot after the resignation in July 22 of then executive director Linda Smith. During her time at the helm of VITCC, Gomes said she was proud of accomplishing a level of structure when it comes to the day-to-day operations. Despite the challenges of not having staff, I was able to ensure that operations were able to keep their businesses open. Operators were able to keep their businesses open and running with as little hiccups as possible. Monies were being accounted for and was inputted into the ERP system almost daily, regularly. Gomes also discussed ongoing plans that the Taxi Cab Commission has had to upgrade its technology. Keep going. Bringing the VITCC into the digital age has been a topic of concern among senators for the past year and a half. It has been something Gomes and the commission board members have been contemplating but a lack of sufficient funding has prevented the transition to an electronic-based system from the existing manual operations. Gums has had a rocky time representing the Taxi Cab Commission over the past couple of years. Senators vowed to overhaul the commission on May 31st, 2023, after hearing about ongoing issues to include outdated rules and regulations, the closure of the St. Thomas office for 10 weeks due to mold remediation, plans to convert the manual operations to an online system, the need for additional staff, enforcement officers, and board members. We have a major crisis on our hands with the Taxi Cab Commission, Senator Carla Joseph, who chaired the committee, said during that May 31st, 2023 meeting. The Senate went on to approve a bill clarifying the duties and responsibilities of the board, while allowing the executive director to manage the commission's day-to-day operations. Another bill was introduced on October 7, 2023, to place the commission, the Taxi Cab Commission, under the Virgin Islands Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, but it never got approved. The VITCC never upgraded its operations to a digital format either. While updating the senators on the operations of the VITCC during a Committee of Government Operations, Veterans Affairs and Consumer Protection on December 18, 2023, Gums said that the Commission's board selected Omni Systems on September 29, 2023 as the preferred vendor to implement the digitization project for about $500,000. However, the VITCC lacked the funding to move the project forward. What a kerfuffle. The financial condition of the Taxi Cab Commission was something senators attempted to understand when Gums appeared before the committee on Budget Appropriations and Finance on March 19, 2024. Gums was, however, unable to provide a thorough accounting of the Commission's revenue. Gums continued talking about the Commission's plan to transform its paper records into an electronic database and the recruitment of employees during the agency's fiscal year 2025 budget hearing on July 12, 2024. The VITCC had 5 employees at the time. Now we go back to the termination. After terminating Gums, the VITCC board immediately appointed Melissa Smith as acting executive director, according to Elizabeth Hanson Watley. She said that Smith initially came to the agency on a loan from another department. So Smith come from another department to help Miss Gums. And that allowed the Taxi Cab Commission to get support while struggling with numerous job vacancies. Gums said, that's former executive director, Gums said, the VITCC only has 1 administrative assistant on St. Croix and 1 enforcement officer on St. Thomas, in addition to Smith, noting a cashier resigned 2 weeks ago. She said that Smith, who is now the acting executive director, now that they terminate Vernice Gomes, she said Smith has worked for the commission for a couple of months at a time. Somebody need to pull them NOPA. I digress. She said Smith worked for the commission for a couple of months at a time. Gomes said when she came on board in 2022, Smith assisted with inputting the daily revenue collections into the ERP system. Mary, you might be right. This is a lot of sauce, but we're going to continue. You might be right. Because I had no help and I reached out for assistance, she came over as a loaner employee to do just that, to provide assistance and to give help. Gomes said, adding that Smith was on loan from the Virgin Islands Police Department. Not the same Virgin Islands Police Department that said that they short staff and they don't have enough police officers. We continue. Now, to the extent of her knowledge base of what is happening and the ins and outs of the Taxi Cab Commission, I am not aware. Well, obviously, Miss Melissa Smith is very aware of the ins and outs of the Taxi Cab Commission because she now replaces you as executive director. We continue. And I want, listen, I know Miss Gomes in passing. I don't know her that well. I know her in passing. I know Miss Elizabeth Hanson Watley in passing. I don't even too sure if I know Melissa Smith. But if it's the Melissa Smith that I am thinking, I know her well. But I'm going to digress and come back. After collaborating with Smith, Miss Hanson Watley said the board decided to appoint her to lead the agency in an acting capacity to maintain stability while it makes internal improvements. I'm going to read it again. After collaborating with Smith, Watley said the board decided to appoint her to lead the agency in an acting capacity to maintain stability while it makes internal improvements. So, she done with VIPD? Or she working for VIPD and she is now, some of the time, working as executive director of VITCC? Which one is it? Or is both? Continue. Miss Elizabeth Hanson Watley continues. We will do what is necessary to make sure that we have leadership. It is a very important role. It comes with a lot of responsibility. However, at this time, we are doing what is best to make sure that we can keep the doors of the Taxi Commission open. My people of the Virgin Islands, the Caribbean and the world, let me tell you something, right? I only could analyze what in the news. I only could use common sense. But you see, when I start to use my legal mind, you see, when I start to use the skills that the Lord have endowed me with, the experience of litigation, and the education of legal studies is a different thing. And when I combine all of it, I'm going to tell you this. That day, what I just read, you know, I had to go in my local twang now. You see, that day, what I just read, that's a whole heap. A pasa. That day was than some of the things I see and social media and Red Man Show and what people they put out. Lord, that they got story. So now let me give you the rest of the story and I'm going to circle back with my conclusion for tonight. This is the rest of the story that you ain't seeing in the consortium, the Daily News, so you could get the full context of what's going on here. This is the rest of the story. From July 10th, 2020, taxi cab head quits and blames the board. We're talking about Linda Smith now, who was replaced by Vernice Gums. So I say it again. Taxi cab head quits and blames the board. This is from 2020. The executive director of the Virgin Islands Taxi Cab Commission resigned, saying that the commission's board of directors was unprofessional, disrespectful, and unnecessarily political. I wonder if I should even read anymore because I think that explains it right there. Straight, sweet, and that is the rest of the story. But let me continue so that you can get more at this whole nonsense that's going on here. Linda Smith, on the job less than a year, had hoped to organize the troubled agency responsible for all for hire cars in the territory. The 9-member commission board appointed by the governor, however, was less than a helpful partner, she said. We need to change that board. It's not going to get any better. The Dalai Lama could come in himself and couldn't change a thing, she said. This is Linda Smith, you know. In 2020, the former executive director who Vernice Gums replaced, saying this about the 9-member board who just terminated the executive director for insubordination. Okay, here we go. Smith said, I resigned Friday because of that board. I'm reading what she said, and I just reading it what she said. I resigned Friday. This is in 2020. Let me keep the years in order. This is in 2020. I resigned Friday in July 2020. That's what it is. Because of that board. This job is too easy for me. It's too easy. But it's laced with politics. Smith said the commission lacks basic elements of professionalism. The same board that just terminated the executive director for insubordination. Okay, we're going to continue. I want you to listen, you know. This is what Smith is saying in 2020. Some of which the same executive director who they just terminated for insubordination was saying up to 2024. Here what Smith said. They have no bylaws, no written policies and procedures, no written tenet, and not even an employee handbook. As a leader, not the leadership, as the leader of the operations, you can see where I can get into trouble easily. And I didn't go to school for all that. Listen, the Taxi Cab Commission, are your story on the road now? Are your story on the road now? I'm telling you, are your story on the road now? And are you going to have litigation to face? Let me warn it. I'm warning you right now. Get your attorneys. Go to Garden Rear and let him come up with whatever story he's going to come up with, because in government I come up with a lot of story. But you see how I can relate and understand and analyze? Believe me, any attorney worth the salt Gonna brutalize the board of the Taxi Cab Commission. I want you to listen to what's going on, you know. The breaking point came while out on medical leave. That's what Linda Smith saying. Smith flew to Florida in April of 2020 for emergency heart surgery. She said, doctors made 9 incisions and placed 2 implants in her chest, leading to an uncomfortable recovery. She only returned to St. Croix from her heart surgery in early July. I could have died, she said. All the while, the commission board sent less than encouraging messages, expecting her to work from the hospital bed, Smith said. They even hired someone to fill in without the required notice of personal action. I tell her, you know, you remember what I just said? Pull the NOPA. Pull the NOPA them. They even hired someone to fill in without the required notice of personal action or budgeted payroll, as Senator General Sorrow uncovered during a June Senate hearing. Oh, so they're committing fraud too. So they're committing fraud too. Okay. Smith said she was lying in the hospital worrying when she had an epiphany. My dear, go with your epiphany. She didn't need the grief. Go with your epiphany. She followed her epiphany. Okay? She's the commission's 3rd executive director departure in as many years. For that reason, for a reason, she said. Remember, you know, this is Smith saying that she is the 3rd commission's executive director departure in 2020. That's before Miss Gums was appointed executive director, only now to get terminated. And she helped put in she place. Son, this here sound like when you and your wife bring in a female babysitter like Biden, like Joe Biden, and you end up marrying your babysitter. But let me go, we're going to continue, because this is pasa, papa. This is pasa. Big changes Smith had hoped to make. This is 2020, you know. Big changes that Linda Smith had hoped to make include adjusting the laws governing for hire cars. Oh, I'm starting to understand how the thing's set. They currently don't allow for easy adaptation of new industry needs and abilities, she said. Smaller government entities like the Commission, budgeted for around 1.25 million each year, should be better aligned, she said. Politics and favoritism got in the way, Smith said. Politics and favoritism got in the way, Linda Smith said in 2020. She continued, competency is based on attitude too, and they're not there yet. She's talking about the board. They're not at that level. What a pasa. If you ask me what my weakness is, Linda Smith said, I work too hard. That is my weakness. I'm relentless. I'm passionate and I'm very driven, but I'm focused. It has to be fair and balanced. And I'm not a politician. I don't know how to play the game. Wow. My listeners, my viewers, this is my analysis of everything that is happening at the VITCC, involving the board, involving the terminated executive director, involving the appointment of the acting executive director, And you must throw back to the resignation of the last executive director, plus the 3 others before she, or the 2 others before she, because it is a circle that tells the story. And like I tell you, any attorney worth the salt gonna take this case. And so, like, I don't give legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. But they can't do them thing there to me. $75 and I'd reach Superior Court. If Miss Vernice Gums, if you were considered an exempt employee, don't waste your time, go to pub. Don't waste your time. I say so. And who don't like that, that's the business. Don't waste your time. That is a defer and a refer. So that ain't legal advice. That is just advice as a human being. Because the law says, if you are exempt employee, you serve at the pleasure of the Virgin Islands governor. And I leave it at that. Administrative remedy? What administrative remedy can you get from a board that 1, 2, 3 people done gone, 1 resigned, and put on the record in the public the most damning indictment of a board? The only board that I see that get a worse indictment from the people who in the board is the board of election. The board of election. The only board that I see have this kind of, listen, this thing is like as the world turns. All who used to watch that Days of Our Lives, or whatever I name, I don't even remember, Edge of Night. It worse than that. This board will not give you anything close to a fair administrative hearing. So you do what you gotta do. I don't know what you're gonna do, but you do what you gotta do. But my analysis of this is this, to my listeners and the people all over the world, because this ain't just happened in this U.S. Virgin Islands. This happens worldwide. This is just abuse of authority under the collar law. This is just people farming up a clique to do whatever they want, to keep who they want, or to, fire who they want. But inside this here, you have some serious ramifications. No per action, non-budgeted stuff. I mean, how? You gotta pull them no-pers. This is a serious matter. You gotta pull them no-pers. And if what Linda Smith said back then is true, no wonder Raymond Williams could go on like how he going on as director of lottery. He could pay who he want even if they work for 10 years. Ain't nobody doing nothing in the Virgin Islands. We don't have no attorney general. We don't have no legal justice system except for the people I want to brutalize. So my analysis of this is this. While the board, the VITCC board members and chairwoman or chair, whatever you want to call it, while they could come down and the executive director and call whatever she did, because she said it's false, it's not true. They could concoct any story. I've seen it live. People make up story right there and then and go in and tell lie, and the person who there and the person break down in tears. Let me tell you something, the people of the valley, don't cry. Don't cry when it comes to them things. They stand up, be counted. People put your back against the wall, you come out fighting. You come out fighting. So I don't know they got that sort out. But to put the person's help in their position as acting executive director was just a slap in the face. And so I could read through this. Let me tell you how to play the game. Because Linda Smith said, she don't know how to play the game and she not a politician. But let me tell you how to play the game. Put all your documentation in a row. Put your ducks in a row. Button down your hatches. Talk to your family. Get yourself together. And you prepare for the war, because there's a war brewing. And somehow I have the feeling they think that you're weak. Or that you may not have enough gumption to take them on. Well, you could take them on because what Linda Smith said, if that is what you are facing now in 2024, 2025, no wonder they're going to say that you're in Swardinet. Because that is what they were setting up for Linda Smith. But you remember what she said? She got an epiphany and so she left before they could move. A lot of people got epiphany. I had a few. I had a few in government. And I only worked for the central government for 6 years. And if I tell you I don't have more than one epiphany, and I moved before they could catch me, would you believe that? So when Linda Smith said that she had an epiphany, oh, she was blessed. Divinity rule, and she just left. Because she ain't know how to play the game, but some people know how to play the game. So let me tell you how to play the game. Everybody who listening. Whenever you see people in position and you're asking them for the basics and it cannot be done in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years, you are in trouble. Especially when you lament the same things from 2022, in 2023, in 2024, they can't afford you to lament it in 2025. Because remember, the VI Taxi Cab Commission governs all taxis in the Virgin Islands. But something going on. Something really going on politically. Somebody need to tell me. I ain't too sure. And I don't like to quote things I don't know. So maybe one of the people online could help me. Does the Taxi Cab Commission govern the limousine services that run on the airport and all over St. Thomas and St. Croix and St. John? Let me know if you know fully. If you know about that. I wish I had Mighty Potter on here because he could tell me for sure. He could tell me for sure. I might have to get him on now that I read this Taxi Cab Commission kerfuffle. Because things are going on in the Taxi Cab Commission that are moving. Good night, Queen. How you doing? Glad for you to come in. You only got some passa in the Virgin Islands Taxi Cab Commission that all over the place. So while I wait to see if I get an answer, because the answer is going to depend on some of the things I say further on. But the Taxi Cab Commission need to get act together. But this is how you play the game. And this is why I say, when you see things like that happen, you got to move out. You got to move out. You cannot fight a corrupt board. You cannot fight a corrupt board. You cannot fight a weak board. You cannot even fight a board that is not completely filled. Because sometimes these boards are not filled for a reason. They got control. So hearing this whole thing now, we understand that the board members are appointed by the governor. We understand that Miss Elizabeth Hanson Watley, I guess they sent out a termination of an executive director by email. That tell you a lot. That they put the person who come from the VIPD as a help. As a help. For the executive director is now the acting executive director after consultation with the board. That tell you how the game play again. Now, if this person is the help from the VIPD and she only work a couple of months from time to time, she was double dipping. or she was working for the commission when she off from the VIPD. Because somebody got pull them nopers. And Attorney General Gardner, Lord knows your reputation gonna end up in tatters. Tatters if you continue with what it is in the public sphere that don't seem to come across your quarters. Huh? Yes, we got to discuss hard discussions. We can't allow people to just do people things and allow politics to reign and corrupt boards to just move and do things willy-nilly and just say, well, we got the authority to because we're board members. Because that's how the game is played. And so my final analysis before I go. Can you imagine that the VITCC board that they say ain't even mightn't be a complete board move to terminate the executive director for insubordination that seems suspect? And we have a board of elections in the Virgin Islands that cannot move to terminate the supervisor of elections for cause after all she do in 2024, including and up to taking the board to court. What more insubordination you want? Also, the VITCC could fire the executive director for insubordination. But the board of election can't do nothing to the supervisor election till all them boards corrupt. They could come into the media and tell the media that they are replacing the executive director who they terminate for insubordination, which he help with the person who come from VIPD now and again couple months to assist, or is it because of the input into the ERP? I don't know. But you see the ERP system of the Virgin Islands and the inputting into the ERP, I'm going to tell her something, eh? God don't sleep. Them NOPA going to put some of you behind jail. And some of them NOPA what are you use to give all your friend them raises and retro them back many months to give them a windfall of thousands of dollars. While at the same time, you keep people who you don't like and who been in position, when they get their raises, you don't backdate it because are you running? Let me tell you something. Attorney General Gardner, again, I'm going to say to you, the government of the Virgin Islands is being run like a RICO across the board, every single place. And if you are appointed by the governor, but you are supposed to represent the people of the Virgin Islands, if you know that your ethics allow you to not stand up for the people and only represent the governing cronies, I have a feeling that you know worse and know better than Vincent Fraser. And God knows, I know what I'm saying when I mean that. What I mean when I say that. You're right, Chantel. It look like our only savior is the federal government. The way things going on in the Virgin Islands, it look like only Donald J. Trump gonna bring some sort of even-handedness in the Virgin Islands and knocking about people. Terminate a girl because she had lunch with Sarah. Because one of your minions them, who are your attention more than your next one, see her, or maybe she didn't give him what he wanted. I see me, I gonna say what I gotta say. And that is why I tell everybody tonight gonna be a long one. Because you see, when I see it in the newspaper, I start to do research, and as soon as I see it, I know the game. Because I know how they play the game. So you got a board of elections that can terminate the supervisor. Because the chairman of the board of elections bend over backwards to keep the insubordinate supervisor of elections on the job. Cuss out board members, drop word. The former board chairwoman, Alicia Wells, You don't want to see the board meetings at the board election. Now you have Raymond Williams sitting illegally on the board, much less they elect him chairman of the board. A man who admit to fraud in the public sphere. Paying a man for lottery who ain't done no work for a whole year, but you pay him a salary. And then you say executive, he come from government house. So where's Attorney General Gordon Weir? Because if I do that, I'd have done come for Fahie. My name would have been all over the media, my picture blasted across the Virgin Islands, Consortium and Daily News. You did it before. They did it before, over $1,000 that come from a bank account that I opened, that had my name on it, that the bank authorized. Let me tell you something what's really going on in the Virgin Islands. People of the Virgin Islands, do like down the islands, you know. We need to start to do like down the islands. You can see when shit hit the fan and people get enough, people just get up and go to the streets. I ain't talking about no violence. I'm talking about dissent. You can't get people doing people things just so. And then you celebrate when one of your crooked cronies, you cover them up and get them out of cases. You celebrate, and when they're done, they sue you. Because you is the Attorney General, but you were the defense attorney. So how you going to sit on the case, Attorney General Gordon Weir? Or maybe you play smart because you're giving good little legal advice. I don't know. Because you know you're coping to come, you know. But come good. Maybe that's why the legal counsel for Roy Schneider, Roy Leicester Hospital have to face the lawsuit from the former official who was charged with so much counts of corruption that the Supreme Court let go free. Notice why I said the Supreme Court let go free. Because he went to trial before a jury, and the jury found him guilty. Found them guilty. But I let Miller take jail. Years upon years in jail. But are you friends them? Didn't get 1 day in jail. And now they're suing the hell out of you. And who they're suing? The same people who defended them. And I think people can't see it, tell you I can analyze. But back to the board of election. The board of election can't terminate Carolyn Fox as supervisor, even though there is documented insubordination. She take them to court. And you're going to have Raymond Williams now as the chairman of the board defending it too. Let me tell you, the members of the board of elections, you better get gumption. Because you got some people who they're like political prostitutes. All they could do is sit down behind the desk. They put on boards to be yes men and yes women. A bunch of fools. That's why I say, a bunch of fools. Because nothing is worse. Nothing is worse than somebody who is an educated fool. So on the Virgin Islands Taxi Cab Commission, the board get up and fire the executive director for insubordination. On the other hand, the board of elections can't fire the supervisor elections for insubordination, election interference, fraud, violation of elections laws, and even defaming a candidate for a federal position when the board itself and the supervisor of elections fail in their duty to have two separate ballots. Because the federal ballot the federal post should have been on a separate ballot talking about they do it to save space. And this is why I tell you, Linda Smith, reading your article, I sit back and I feel your pain, but I see your wisdom. When you say, you get an epiphany. I feel that story in 2020 because you documented in the newspaper the very reasons why in 2020 you documented the very reasons why in 2025 Varnish Gums had to be terminated. Because if she was to resign, she would say the same thing. They're back at square one, so I ask the question. What is it the VA Taxi Cab Commission controls that is so important to keep politically in a status quo? What is it? What is it what is it the Taxi Cab Commission controls? Is it only the taximen, or it also controls the limousines? Or did they want to put the Taxi Cab Commission underneath Department of License and Consumer so that they could kill it off? Because the limousines are under the Division of Licensing and Consumer. Once they form an LLC, they got a business, they answer to them, and the board of the Taxi Cab Commissioner, the commission, reigns over the taxi man them who they brutally listen. In the Virgin Islands, you got to know how to play the game, but before you know how to play the game, you got to know the rules. And the rules in the game in the Virgin Islands is that there are no rules. It is just political expediency. So once you know the rules of the game and you know it's political expediency, then you play the politics. And part of the politics knowledge is power. Part of the politics knowledge is power. And I believe that they believe that the executive director, Vernice Gums, was becoming a liability, a political liability, and that is why she gone home. And that's my opinion. So the moral of this podcast, on Saturday, February 22nd, on episode 40, that is entitled How to Play the Game, the moral of this podcast is simply this. When a corrupt minority who was selected have no more use for you, you are destroyed and you are done. That is, if you don't know how to play the game. Because if you know to play the game, if you know how to play the game, perhaps Executive Director Vernice Gums, you would have still been Executive Director of the VA Taxi Cab Commission, because they would not even dare go down the road to talk about it terminating you for insubordination. You don't see how Carolyn Fox, the supervisor of elections, have the board of elections, the governor, the senators, the Democrat Party, Republican Party, and all these people who towing the line and the status quo. You see how she got them bent over, honey? Because knowledge is power. And past proves present. But with Donald Trump in the White House, with a Republican Senate and a Republican House, the man who operating like he has been impeached, persecuted, indicted, almost assassinated, is moving like he don't give a shit. He gives 0 Fs. Present will not prove future. Because ultimately he knows how to play the game. To my listeners in the Caribbean and worldwide, but to you, my listeners and viewers in the Virgin Islands, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Because this is a corrupt political cabal. They can't change. Prada will remain Prada, Fendi will remain Fendi. Sweet mouth will remain sweet mouth. And those who believe that they're above the law cannot change. They're going to always think they're above the law. And they're going to think that they could take liberties with people until, just like how they smack you in the mouth, you park them back a slap in the mouth. Good night. Learn how to play the game. And God bless.